everyone, I'm Becca. I'm a second year A-level business student at Chichester College, and today we will be looking at chapter 1.2.1, which is demand, and that includes the factors leading to a change in demand, and I will also be showing you the demand curve. So what is demand? Demand is the quantity of a product that a consumer is willing and able to buy at a given price in a period of time. So now I'm going to show you how you would draw the demand curve. So for this, we plot an axis of price versus quantity. To remember which way the demand curve needs to be drawn, you can remember the saying, demand to the dirt. So what I mean by this is that we start high and we go low, and we label that curve D for demand. So the demand curve shows how quantity demanded is affected by a change in price. So if I was to plot a point on the demand curve, let's say here, if I draw across to where it crosses both axes, so where it crosses both price and quantity, we can see that as the price of the product is high, there is actually a low quantity demanded of that product. Now, if I draw another plot there, if I draw across again, we can see that the price is much lower this time, and actually there's a much higher quantity demanded. So now I've shown you the basic demand curve, I'm going to show you how to draw a change in demand when it is affected by other factors other than price. So the one that I just showed you was when demand is only affected by a change in price. There are actually other factors that can affect demand. If I draw the demand curve, so to show an increase in demand for your product, you shift the demand curve to the right, and you would label that D1. So if the demand curve shifts to the right, that shows an increase in demand. So this repositioning of the demand curve shows how the quantity of a product demanded can increase when the price of a product stays the same in some cases. So what I mean by this is that if the price of our product is here, I'll draw across to our first demand curve. The quantity is here. So label that P1 and Q1. Now, if the price of the product has stayed the same, I draw across using that same line there, but I draw down to the quantity demanded, and you can see that actually quantity demanded has increased, even though the price of the product has stayed the same. So there I showed you how you would draw an increase in demand. What about a decrease in demand? Now, because a shift to the right was an increase in demand, a shift to the left is going to be a decrease in demand. Label it D1. You can even draw an arrow like that, but again, that is fine. Okay, so that means that if the price of your product is here, if I draw across to our original demand curve, label that P1 and Q1. If the price of the product stays the same, I draw down from that same price level from the second demand curve and label that Q2, and you can see how quantity demanded has gone from here to here. That shows that demand has shifted to the left, so it has decreased. So now we've looked at the demand curve, let's have a look at the factors that can affect demand other than price. So the first factor that might affect demand is the price of substitute products. So substitutes are similar products offered by the competition. So for example, your product, so your business sells Pepsi. Now your substitute products, so your competition would be products such as Coca-Cola or Tesco Cola. And these products are substitutes. So if your competitors like Coca-Cola or Tesco Cola were to lower their price, this might attract more customers to their products, so their demand is going to increase. If more customers are going to Coca-Cola and Tesco Cola instead of Pepsi, because their price is cheaper than yours, your demand is going to decrease because their product is cheaper. So the next factor that affects demand is the price of complementary goods. So let's say your product is a skiing holiday. Now, your complementary good is going to be ski wear. If the price of ski wear goes down, demand for ski wear is going to increase, which could mean that the demand for skiing holidays will increase. This works both ways, so if the price of ski wear goes up, demand for ski wear is going to decrease, which could lead to a decrease in demand for skiing holidays. So another factor that affects demand is changes in consumer incomes. So if income, wages start to rise, salaries rise, people are going to have more disposable income to spend. This could lead to an increase in the demand for cars because cars are classed as a luxury good. They're classed as a normal good. However, if we're talking about an inferior good, such as, let's say, Morrison's own canned beans, if disposable income increases, the demand for Morrison's own canned beans is going to decrease because customers start to look for better alternatives. So they may switch to Heinz, for example. So the demand for Heinz beans is going to increase. And that's because customers have more money to spend, so they're going to spend more of their disposable income on branded food instead of supermarket own label food. So when we're talking about consumer income, the change in demand depends on the product. The next factor that affects demand is fashion tastes and preferences. If something is on trend or has become popular, demand for it will increase. And this is very relevant when talking about the clothing industry because fashion is constantly changing. The next factor is advertising and branding. If a business increases its advertising for its products, demand is likely to increase. And if a business has a well-recognised brand, for example, Nike, customers are going to perceive their products as high quality, which should lead to an increase in demand. The sixth factor that affects demand is demographics. So, for example, an increase in population size is going to create an increase in demand for most products and services. But also, not just this, people are living longer, which means that more of the population are elderly, which means that we've got an increased demand for healthcare and retirement homes. Also, the structure of households. There's an increased demand for single accommodation. More people are living in urban areas, so demand for schools and hospitals in these areas is going to increase. Number 7 is external shocks, which I've written in red because businesses cannot control external shocks. So, for example, COVID was a massive one. Government taxes, if the government increases taxes, this could lead to less disposable income for people to spend, and therefore demand for luxury goods or normal goods is going to decrease. The business may have a new competitor come into the market. This could lead to a lot of customers going to them to try their product, which could lead to the demand for your product decreasing. Social and environmental factors. This is also quite a big one in recent times. For example, customers are starting to want to use products with low carbon emissions. Therefore, they're going to buy products from companies that are environmentally friendly. Social factors such as the demand for social media has increased, which has in turn led to an increase in products like smartphones. And then finally, the economic climate. So if the economy is in a boom, this could lead to more disposable income for people to spend. Therefore, demand is going to increase. But if there is a recession, this could mean that people have less money to spend, which could lead to a decrease in demand for many businesses. And finally, the last factor that affects demand is seasonality. So many businesses sell products that only come in demand when they're in season. So, for example, Christmas trees. Another one is when the sun comes out, everyone loves an ice cream. But in winter, not many people want to buy an ice cream from an ice cream van, so their demand will decrease in winter and increase in the summer. Another one is Valentine's Day, so the demand for chocolates and flowers increases. The same for Mother's Day. And that's my bad attempt at drawing a pumpkin there on the right. So when Halloween comes around, the demand for pumpkins increases, as well as the demand for fancy dress costumes. Okay, so in order to remember all 8 of these factors, you can come up with an acronym to remember them. You can come up with your own, or you can use my one, which is FISCAIDS. Thank you everyone for listening. Just to summarise, in this video you have learnt the factors that affect demand and how to show a change in demand using the demand curve.